Okay, cool. Nice group. All right, we'll probably have some people hopping on here. I wonder if the real Charles will join, but we won't let him in. So this is our own private class without Charles of Japan. All right, so I know all of you and you know me. And so while Charles was away, I was thinking about how it might get a little sad and lonely. And there were all of these amazing new distillery releases from Scotland that I was like, let me grab all of these and let's put together a coastal class. So this is outside of Isla, this is a little bit of a journey or a trip that I take sometimes with my small groups, which is this West Coast coastal Scotland tour, which is a nice mix of peat and salinity and unpeated, and you just get wild flavors when it comes to coastal whiskeys. And I'm saying it like it's a category that means anything, but it's really just geography. There's so many different styles of coastal whiskey, but we all know that with there being peated from the Speyside region and unpeated coming from Isla. But I have to say, in the last 3 months, normally we're all excited and pumped about independent bottlers, which we still are, and always will be. But the cool releases have been in the distillery releases. So when I saw Nc'Nean's release come out, we threw in some that have been around and have come back into play this year with the Raasay. Ardnamurchan had 2 back-to-back awesome releases in March. And then Kilchoman's been crushing it with some single casks. So I'm glad that everyone was as thrilled to taste these as I was. And once we get through Nc'Nean, I really did not plan for it to be a battle of the Madeira and Sauternes cask at the end of the tasting, but that's how it turned out to be. But that was not how it was planned originally. So,
Hey, Holly,
yeah.
two quick questions for you. One, so when you say coastal, I mean, does this, because it's not technically a category, are we spanning like what normal regions, I guess, is this tasting going to span? Like, I'm thinking, I don't know, like, is it going to be Speyside and Highland technically, but they're the coastal ones?
This is actually the West Coast gets dumped into Highlands. So
Okay.
everything is Highlands, even Raasay, even though it's an island. Ardnamurchan and Nc'Nean are on the mainland. This is where I'm not a huge fan of Zoom, but I'm going to show you actually a map. I mapped it out like we were driving through these distilleries.
Go home in Zyla.
Yeah, and then we'll end on Isla, which is its own region, which I know you're aware of. So I'm going to let me know how this looks. I have it as split screen.
It's split.
It's split. All right. Would it be better to be full screen?
Yeah, it's a little hard to
Yeah.
see
Okay,
it.
let me do full screen. How's that?
No.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Much improved.
So this is we started in Glasgow and we're going to you can see most of the distilleries. These are not easy distilleries to get to. And actually when I take my coastal trip, we go to Oban, which is a big hub of which is on the mainland, a big fishing port, which helps get you to a lot of the West Coast islands. It's kind of the ferry hub for those Hebrides and those outer and inner islands of that west coast of Scotland. And Nc'Nean and Ardnamurchan, as I mentioned, they are physically on the mainland. They're not on an island, but the roads are so treacherous once you get, see like kind of where this map is and you see, it's actually where Fort William would be. But you see when we come up from Glasgow and then we start to cut across into the peninsulas, once you get onto those peninsulas, those roads they're barely legally, I think, allowed to be called roads. They're not only single track, but they're not maintained. There's sheep everywhere. There's there is industry, there's logging and obviously distilleries, there's trucks on these roads, which are insane. And you hear Ardnamurchan tell stories about how they had to change the size of things of their equipment based off of what could get through the roads to where they're located. So we've always found that the best way to actually get to some of these remote parts of the West Coast on the main land is by ferry. So to start this, we would actually leave from Glasgow, go up to Oban, take the ferry over to Mull, which is where Tobermory Distillery is, where they make Tobermory and Leitchegg. And then we would take from Mull a second little kind of hopper ferry across to the peninsula that juts out just north of Mull to get over to Nc'Nean and Ardnamurchan. Then when we're going to go up to Raasay, we could take a ferry from Mull and go all the way up to Skye. So you'll see Raasay is further north. Skye is the main island, and Raasay is this little sub-island that sits just above Skye. So actually, technically, if we wanted to get to Raasay the way I'm thinking we would take 4 ferries. But you can drive to Skye. So that's why this coastal area, people just don't get to it because it's not a day trip. It's something that you really have to plan out, and then you're kind of bound by the ferries and the water. Now, when I say ferry, some of these are like the one to Nc'Nean is a little tugboat. I think it fits 4 cars. You just sit on your car and it just tugs you across the water. So this whole ferry tugboat system. Melissa's actually been with me on some of these little tugboats. And then we're not going the correct way for efficiency, but then we would come back down south to Islay, which is still West Coast, but because of its history and all of the distilleries on Islay, that's why it's its own region. But some people talk about islands where if you want to include Highland Park up in Orkney, down through Skye with Talisker, Torraveg, Raasay, the Isle of Mull. Now you have Iona has a distillery, Outer Hebrides, there's distilleries. So island distilleries are becoming more commonplace, but technically for the Scotch Whisky Association, they're the Highlands. So they're the same as Aberfeldy and the same as Deanston, which is kind of crazy when you think about that. So let's drink Nc'Nean. We're going to jump right into
About time.
Yeah, about dang time, right, Dave?
Yep.
So we're going to start with unpeated. What do I have first? Yeah, the Quiet Rebels. So this one actually is going to be a little bit heavy to start, but the second Nc'Nean that we're going to do is pretty big and bold. So this one, actually, I have not tasted yet, and I'm very excited, but this release comes with sad news. Does anyone know Nc'Nean, the brewery that this stout finished, stout, the beer?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they just filed for bankruptcy. Maybe my beer people I would think there. So this might be a very special release for the future of beer collaborations. Scotland is, and the UK, I mean, the United States as well, is the beer world is struggling. And Nc'Nean, I believe, is one of the ones that just recently did go into bankruptcy court. But either way, this is Nc'Nean Distillery, which these are all of my own photos as well. We were there in last year, 2025. It was a pretty rainy day. Thank you, Coastal Scotland. And definitely a place that does not get a lot of visitors. So it was great. We were drinking some of the War and the Wash, drinking. I remember when we were on this trip, though, 90% of the people that were traveling with me were sick. We're not feeling well. So I don't know if we wanted to be drinking War or Wash during this trip. But it was amazing to finally get here because this is one of the new wave distilleries. So this was founded by Annabelle Thomas, who worked in the financial industry back down in London and worked on consulting projects for sustainability companies and worked on some sustainable projects for distilleries and realized very quickly that it's not very sustainable. There's a lot of water being used. Now it's gotten much better, but this is all an ecosystem within the environment, these distilleries. So she wanted to build her own distillery on her family's property, which must be nice. I wish I had a little piece of property on the west coast of Scotland, but she decided to build her own distillery and be the first B Corp certified distillery in Scotland, which I don't know all of the legality. I'm sure that a lot of people on here know more about it than I do, but they have all of the regulations that they have to follow to have that B Corp definition, and it's pretty insane. So actually their glasses and bottles are all recycled glass. They're beautiful too. So they really follow strict protocol, and they have to too because of where they're located. So this is one of the Quiet Rebels releases. I think this is the 4th or 5th. So this is their kind of core range single malt, which is matured in bourbon, sherry, and STR casks initially. So shaved, toasted, recharred red wine barrels. So it has those 3 casks, and then it's finished. Well, sometimes it's not finished, but this one is finished further in a stout cask. But the Quiet Rebels series is given names for employees that work at the distillery in different capacities to accentuate and highlight their preferred flavor profile, which I think is pretty cool. Because what if Simon, which is this release, what if Simon leaves Nc'Nean? You know, I mean, you did thousands of bottles in his name, so I guess you have to make sure that they're going to stay at the company for a while. But this is the Simon release, which is kind of cool. So Simon obviously likes beer. So as you're drinking this one, I've got the full maturation time. So this just came out. They had a Quiet Rebels, which was, what was that called? It was something Meadow. We just had it and just sold out, which was more floral, fruit forward. This is, 4 years in that marriage of those 3 styles of cask, and then only finished for 3 weeks in an Innocent Gun oatmeal stout cask. So 3 weeks is not very long, but obviously they were a little concerned about the influence that a dark beer like that would have on the distillation. No peat on this one, so we're starting in the unpeated world as well. I mean,
I'm sorry, did you say ABV?
This is 48.5% ABV.
Oh, it's on the sheet. Sorry.
That's okay. I changed the tasting mat too. Really went for it.
There's a lot going on here despite the young age, I have to say. I guess not fair to say young age, but I think hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, all of Nc'Nean's, I haven't seen an age statement on a Nc'Nean release yet. And actually, I haven't really on Ardnamurchan either, except for today when we got the first 10-year Ardnamurchan release in today. It's their first time, but nothing. Actually, that's a great topic for all these distilleries, is that they knew they didn't have time on their side, right? They're not Lefroy, they're not Oban, they haven't been maturing casks of whiskey for 100 years. So the inventory and backlog of different ages and stock and styles was not available. So they all had to create really great whiskey up front, which I'm not saying that Lefroy and Oban and these other distilleries don't, but the attention to the quality of grains and cask management and quality of oak, all of these things have to be perfect at these new distilleries, because they know they have to release whiskey. 3 years is the bare legal minimum, but they have to release a whiskey at that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 year mark, and not hide it, right? I mean, it's especially, I always find if you're not peated, it's harder to hide. No offense, young peated whiskey fans, but peat can hide youth a little bit easier than unpeated. So they have to be attention to detail, and the types of oak and quality of oak that they get has to be on point. Blending has to be on point. Nothing can be wasted. It's not like they can just sell this off to Dewar's or Johnny Walker. The business model is totally different. than really the rest of the industry has been for the last 100 years. I mean, when we're doing a class where Kilchoman's the oldest one in the room, which is kind of crazy. They were always the new wave. Can you taste the stout? I mean, I can smell it. It's pretty for 3 weeks. Yep, this is the Simon release, so the Quiet Rebels chocolate. Jim, that's definitely from that's from the stout, but that's probably also coming from the red wine barrels that have been shaved, toasted, and recharred. That STR barrel as well. You get some of that mocha from that kind of charred red wine as well.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I get some coffee and chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly on the finish.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
like a baking cocoa, like bitter, not sweet chocolate, but more the roasty.
yeah, like a burnt chocolate. Yeah, the roasted. It's definitely not overly sweet. And if you've had the core Nc'Nean release, which is essentially this, but without the finish, it's fruit forward. So but there's definitely some of that sherry influence, some of that baking spice, kind of roasted nut, but it skews more sweeter fruit. So this definitely is quite different. They wanted that stout barrel to take it in a different direction than Nc'Nean's ever really gone. Because everything I've seen from them, which the next one we do will be this way, has really focused on more of the fruitier, sweeter sides of Nc'Nean. So this is the first heavier release. So Simon must like stout beer. So that's it. We're drinking it because of him. It was a little over 6,000 bottles released, came out in February-ish. Their tasting notes were hazelnut, stewed cherries, black cherries, molasses, roasted oats, fudge, chocolate truffle, and spice. Sounds about right. Yeah, chocolate brioche, coffee beans.
Yeah, very tasty.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think you have to like stout to enjoy it, but I prefer this over some of the IPA casks that I've tasted. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think the stout kind of falls in line into almost like when you have a cream sherry cask where that chocolatiness comes out a little more. It reminds me of that kind of roasted chocolate.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it gives it a little texture too, which is kind of nice. All right, so keep that flavor profile in mind. And we're going to go up in ABV. So we're going to now move on to the Nc'Nean Calvados, which I love Calvados and apple brandies and things like that. This is a single.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, yes, I'm agreeing with you. I wish more whiskeys had brandy finishes.
Me too. But c'est la vie. But I've also had some that I've found some really dry ones. So, I always thought it was a kind of a shoe-in, a fruit-forward, sweet whiskey, wherever it comes from in the world. If you put it in an apple brandy or a fruit distillate cask, like it's just going to be more fruit. But some of them I've actually tried it's dried it out. But we'll see what people think of this Calvados. Obviously, I picked this one because I don't think that's the case for this one, but that's more on the American whiskey side. I found some of that. So this is a single cask that Nc'Nean released. Their single cask range is called AON or Aeon. So this is Aeon 17518, and it's called the Big Apple. So I'm guessing they wanted to make New York City happy with the Big Apple comment. This is 60.2% ABV. And this is actually a little bit older, Jeff, than the Quiet Rebels. Not that it matters, but this is a little over 6 years old. And I'm not sure if it says what the Calvados was.
Green granny apple on the
ABV?
nose.
Grainy or granny apple?
Granny.
Granny apple.
A green granny apple.
Let's see the Calvados. So,
Holly, can you repeat the ABV?
sure, it's 60.2%.
Thank you.
Mhm. So this one here, again, still unpeated. I haven't seen anything peated from Nc'Nean. A little over 6 years old. First matured in an ex-bourbon barrel from 2017 to 2021, and then finished in an ex-Avalon Calvados cask from 2021 to 2024. So it was pretty much, I wouldn't even call this a finish. That would be more of a double maturation because it basically lived, that's a long time in the ex Calvados cask. Their tasting notes, juicy fruit, fresh green apple, pear, stewed fruits, a lot of fruits, apple strudel, spice compote, buttery pastry, and baked pie crust. So apples, good job. We're getting the Calvados now. Let's see here. I haven't had this one in a little while.
Oh, that's interesting. Avalon is also B certified and
Oh.
a climate conscious Calvados.
I guess it would, well, I don't know about Innocent Gun, but that would probably be one of their reasons for partnering with them. I know they talked about that with their sherry casks, actually even up to their swag. So like the water bottles that we got there and the beanies, everything was from a B certified company, which I'm sure was a nightmare
nice.
to source.
Yeah.
Expensive.
Do you recommend going there? Because I'm gonna be in Scotland in June, and I just found out that the festivals for the Hebrides is happening at the same time. So we're gonna try to go to Mull, but then I realized, oh my gosh, Nc'Nean's happening like the day before. So I might try to go if I can.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they would participate in the festival since they're not, maybe because they're closer to that than the Highland Festival, but
Yeah,
I would definitely.
they have a day.
Oh, they do? Okay.
They have a festival day. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely go, but I would go to Ardnamurchan too. I mean, you gotta.
Yeah, it's them four
Sure.
is the festival. They each have a day, and it's Oban, Tobermory,
Okay.
ArdnaMerica, and Nc'Nean.
Oh, nice.
So really interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure that their little ferry system. I wonder how they're going to do that because Nc'Nean is pretty close, but you still need a car for both, even when you get off the ferry on the mainland. So maybe they'll have some shuttles but yeah, I would definitely go visit. Ardnamurchan might have a little bit of a better view. But
Nice.
something to keep in mind too. I get a lot of cooked fruit on this one. I know a little bit of that fresh fruit on the nose, but the palate for me is a lot of that baked pie sort of fruit spice.
I like this one much more than the first.
Yeah, I mean, they had an ex-bourbon single cask. Every single cask that they've had come out, I've grabbed. I think mouthfeel, they do well. Again, I know with age, but everything that we're drinking tonight outside of the one Kilchoman is that 4 to 7 year range. So they're all competing in that same space.
Holly, what was the ABV on this one again? I'm sorry.
This one is 60.2%.
Okay. It doesn't drink that. Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed. It's
And this was how many bottles? I think it was 3, no, not even 300. So not too many bottles. But loving their single casks that are coming out. So I'm gonna put
I enjoyed that.
good, I'm glad everyone. I definitely wanted to get that one open for everyone to taste. Show the power of.
Ooh, you still have some of these on the shelf?
Yeah, and I think everything except for Ardnamurchan Madeira, I can get more of too. So hopefully no one likes the Ardnamurchan. So these are the Nc'Neans. So yeah, there's some on the website. I'll put the link now, and then if it's not there for some reason or someone bought it, then just shoot us an email. I would do info@firstfulspirits or Holly, but I'll just put mine since you probably don't have Charles.
Charles Gabrinsky is online.
That's me. Oh, he snuck in.
We woke him up. No,
No,
that was
that's
you.
me. I didn't change my name. Should I change my name? No, it's fine. Then on the recording, well, I guess you're gonna see me. So let's see. We could video call him at the end.
We should.
I'll let you all know that he did say that he's ready to come home. Charles misses you all. I said, well, we rented out your apartment, so you can't come home. All right. So we liked the Calvados one. That was the favorite. Poor Simon. It's all right. We'll wait for the next Quiet Rebels release and see. I don't know. I think like on those cold winter nights, I'm a big stout beer fan though. I like dark beers. So I guess maybe that's more for if you're a beer drinker, you've got to be kind of in that mood. So at least we got the Calvados going. Oh, there's Melissa. She's on the call. Oh, and Leo thought I was inviting someone in. So we're going to move on to Raasay. So this is okay. So Raasay, look, that is, I'm not really a great photographer, but I took that photo one with the logo on the top left. Skye is beautiful. If you've been to Skye, it's amazing. They find dinosaurs there. I feel like every 2 years. It's just, that's why there's also tour buses going to Skye now. But Skye is kind of the main attraction island, right? It's the big mountains. They're very jagged and intense and crazy, and everyone's rock climbing and hiking and, you know, being super adventurous. But then you take this little ferry over just across the water to Raasay, which has about 100 people on the island that live there, probably semi full-time, and very similar to Jura. So this Isla Jura dynamic where it's kind of the little sister island. Unfortunately, this island actually has some really terrible stories about clearances and people being forced off the island, but look at those views back to Skye. We saw some people camping there, just in their tents. I mean, I would love to spend more time on the island just to see all of the different viewpoints back onto Skye. It was incredible. I still can't believe I took that photo. So Raasay I wanted to throw in here because this Cana is a release that was supposed to be limited for them last year. And it was so popular that they decided to continue it, basically, to keep doing this sherry finish, these small cask or quarter cask sherry finished release. It's just a really delicious whiskey. Some of you maybe have tried it in the shop, but if you hadn't, I thought this is really, Raasay to me is a great balance of a little bit of peat, a little bit of salinity, a little bit of spice, a little bit of sweet. It's really a mixed bag. All of their releases are a mixed bag of everything. And it's because of how they mature. So I'm actually going to grab their core release.
It's funky.
So their core Raasay is they make unpeated malt and peated malt. We're not doing it. Okay, so they make peated and unpeated malt. And both of those two styles go into 3 different types of casks. So it goes into an ex-rye cask, so an ex-American rye. So we're looking at spice. It goes into a chinkapin oak cask, which we've seen with Glenallachie and actually an American whiskey now too with Heaven Hill. But it's around the world, but it is an American style oak. So think of that like American oak, vanilla, but with a little bit of like a not tea tree, but like a nice kind of spicy herbal vanilla sweetness. And then the third style are Bordeaux red wine casks. And then they marry, so they have 6 styles of whiskey. They marry those all together. So you have a dash of everything. And then they have a series where they do single casks highlighting those 6 different styles. So you'll see an unpeated Bordeaux release. You'll see a peated rye cask release. And those have been awesome. So this Nc'Nean is initially in rye barrels. So it's their peated and unpeated malt exclusively in ex-American rye barrels, and then finished in Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez quarter casks. So smaller barrels that had been seasoned with sherry. So you're getting that kind of quick punch of sherry influence.
Is this a no age statement?
Correct. Yeah, no age statement. This is 52% ABV. So we're going down in ABV a little bit. This is actually the first ever legal distillery on the island. So tons of illicit distilling, but this is the first legal one to hold a license. It was actually founded by this cool Australian guy that made his fortune in cheese and mushrooms, which sounds pretty cool. Would love to drink Raasay with a cheese plate, and originally wanted to build the distillery on the borders of Scotland and England, because that's where he was thinking efficiency. That's where a lot of the big malting houses are for breweries in England. And having an island is not efficient, right? An island distillery, it's, which is kind of ironic that Nc'Nean chose to be there, but trucking things in and out and relying on the ferry systems, and it's not back 100 years. That's why there was no legal distillery here, but it's still not efficient. You're still kind of bound by weather and just extra costs.
And that tiny ferry.
Yes, a tiny ferry. And no one lives there. You have to get people to work. Now almost half of the population works at the distillery. So this is a very important part of the economy within this community now, obviously. So they bought an old vacant kind of like boarding house, rebuilt it, and because he found this property and thought it was, probably it is, much more beautiful with those views than a distillery on the mainland by the English border, which I'm sure is very beautiful as well, but decided to buy this piece of land. And I guess he still has the vision of having 2 distilleries, but for now we have Raasay. And their whiskey ranges when they're doing the marrying between that 25 to 40 parts per million in peat. So it can vary slightly, but we're kind of middle of the road in peat smoke. So kind of what, think of Oban, Talisker, this sort of world that is not your heavy Isla, but definitely the peat is present. So you know that it's a peated style of whiskey. They were first built around the same time as Nc'Nean, 2014-ish. Actually a little bit later, 2016, 2017. They started redesigning everything in 2015. So this Nc'Nean, let's see here. Tasting notes. We've got peppery spice, which is definitely coming from those ex-rye barrels, roasted nuts, sweet fruits, and some vanilla. This has been a shop favorite. Once we usually taste people on this,
They've done really well with some of those rye casks they use. It comes out great, I think, with their distillate.
Yeah, it's a nice kind of tarry, and I think that's the sherry playing in well with the medium peat smoke, but that kind of tar, like new pavement sort of tar quality to the peat smoke that I like, playing with that sherry. It's pretty thick in the middle of the palate. It's actually more peated than I remember. That's pretty
Yeah,
fun.
when I first tasted it, I was saying funky, but I think you just nailed it. It's that tar character that's given me like a funky
Mhm.
taste.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, the small sherry casks are playing a key role in this. I mean, it's amplifying those heavier notes. I think the Pedro Jimenez is probably giving it some of the texture too, some of that thicker mid palate quality, not overly sweet like Pedro Jimenez does sometimes, but I think the peat and the rye spice are doing a good job with the sweetness from the sherry.
I always say that funk is personal. This is personally my favorite kind of funk.
Yeah, Marcus Purcell. I remember at this distillery, they had all these crazy single cast, different types of oak finishes. You can imagine all the combinations that you can get with all the styles that they make. And I forget who it was, but someone was being a little bashful, and they were like, "Can we ask to taste some?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was driving, so I didn't. But I mean, you have this view, you might as well just keep drinking, right? So I have just a cool sheep video. I made everyone on my trip listen to a podcast about Callum's Road. I don't think anyone cared to listen, but I made them listen to it. And Callum's Road there's probably stories like this all over rural Scotland, but there was this man whose daughter went to school on Raasay, and then they closed the school. I forget the time frame, maybe the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And they now needed to take a ferry over to Skye, and his daughter had to walk so far to catch the bus to the ferry, and the Scottish government wasn't building roads quick enough. So basically, by hand, he was a mason, built a road to his house, to the bus station for his daughter. And I forget how many miles it was, but it was insane. And his wheelbarrow is still on the side of the road. So this like one road that goes through the middle of the island, connects the whole island, is made by hand. And the government didn't help him. So this is Callum's Road. We couldn't go all the way because it was also Holly's rental car that was going to get destroyed at the end of Callum's Road. But we have a fun little video of the sheep that had not seen a car probably in a couple weeks. Zoom.
Awkward silence. Somebody say something.
No, don't say anything. Just let it be awkward.
Holly, why do they use rye cast instead of bourbon cast? Do you know?
I mean, they probably say because they knew it was going to work well, and
Right.
but it's to be different. It's definitely, but I'm sure that was a piece of the puzzle. They make a very fruity style of whiskey. You see it in their setup of the stills, and they make a lot of copper contact, a very fruit forward style of whiskey. So they probably wanted some of that bolder spice and not just sweetness. And there's still sweetness coming from rye. We know that there's still a lot of candied sweetness. So probably a lot of trial and error, but it's also a way to set yourself apart because the Scotch industry, rye is not common. It's not the staple or standard. So they obviously chose 3 casks. The Bordeaux is the most common, which is not even really super common, but Chinkapin and the wine. So just trying to be different, being a new distillery, knowing that they needed some ways to differentiate themselves. This is a very short video, but I just thought we all needed to see some sheep, especially since it's baby animal season in Scotland right now. Oh, it's not really playing, but the sheep don't move. They just stand in the middle of the road. So I'm see if it actually worked.
Best video ever where nothing moves.
The sheep are moving. All right. I guess it's fine as a photo then, so we'll go back to
Beautiful scenery, but it's a short
amazing video, right?
Right.
She was driving.
That's why it's not good. I didn't want to take anything off the internet, so I was like, I have my own content. All right, let's go back to the deck here. We like the Raasay. I mean, if you like peat and sherry, you can't really go wrong with this one.
I like it.
And their stuff is
Yeah.
really affordable too. Everything that they've released, which is always a pleasant surprise as well.
It's fun to taste something different because actually the more Bordeaux forward expression that you guys carry, I probably have bought 2 or 3 bottles of that because that's by far my favorite. So I do appreciate getting to try a couple of their other expressions, or one.
Yeah.
I like the peppery finish. It's very dry and peppery right at the tail end, which is nice because it's kind of funky and sweet, but then you get that really crisp. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that the rye still can hold up to all of that oak and sherry influence is I don't recall if it's probably a mixture of different brands, just like people who use bourbon barrels, but I wonder what I don't recall seeing a specific brand name of rye that they're using. But it'd be cool to know. All right. So let's move over to Ardnamurchan, which I know we have a lot of Ardnamurchan fans in the crowd. So 2 very special limited releases. And let me go back here so I can see what I'm doing. So Ardnamurchan. Again, we're talking all of these distilleries, are just 2 pot stills. So probably anywhere from, I think Nc'Nean was like 350 or 400,000 liters of new make spirit a year, up to Raasay has the capacity of 1 million. Ardnamurchan probably around 1 million too. I mean, the big distilleries have 15, 16. What's Glenlivet, Glenfiddich up to 18, 19 million liters of new make spirit per year. So these are really these distilleries aren't selling into blends. They are there to be their own brands. And as we'll see with Ardnamurchan, the first 2 were really entrepreneurs that thought they wanted to go at the Scotch whiskey industry. But Ardnamurchan is like Clydeside, a lot of other distilleries that we're seeing that are independent bottlers that have decided to have a little bit more say and control and how to sell their whiskey, buy other whiskey for their independent bottling line, basically have a little bit more skin in the game by producing their own whiskey. Gordon and MacPhail, obviously, with Ben Romek, and then building their Cairn distillery, Signatory with Edradour. But Ardnamurchan is from the Adelphi independent bottling range, which has always been a really, really well thought of and sought after independent bottler. Unfortunately, we don't get a ton of it here in the US, but they decided that they wanted to build their own distillery. So again, the family of the Adelphi, which Adelphi actually was a distillery in Glasgow, a lost distillery, which is kind of cool. But they took the name and now act as an indie bottler. and they opened in 2014. So started making whiskey. They're right on the coast. And this is a really beautiful, when you walk up to their warehouses, you can see the coastline within just a couple minutes drive. There's a lot of great viewpoints. You know, it's like off a postcard where the fishing boats are out to sea and the nets are there. And it really is very picturesque. And I remember the first time I went to visit Ardnamurchan Distillery, Charlie McLean, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the name, but a really prominent whiskey author, has lots of different reputations in the industry, but he has three sons that aren't necessarily in the Scotch whiskey industry, but they're big rowers. They're do like sailing and rowboat. I'm not saying it correctly because I don't do this stuff, but they did this charity event about, it was before COVID. They've done more since, but it was a beautiful sunny day. We're there with a group. We're, you know, just getting to the distillery, and in comes this rowboat and these three guys come off the boat, just like out of a J. Crew ad, and like start walking up Ardnamurchan with like bags of whiskey and their paddles. And it was just like out of a J. Crew ad. And I was like, everyone was like, where the heck are we? They were doing a video shoot of Charlie McLean's family, all like in their bathing suits at Ardnamurchan Distillery. It was a very strange, bizarre place. So when you go to these places, weird things happen and no one believes you because you're in the middle of nowhere. But Ardnamurchan is definitely one of those very remote rural places. And when you get there, you see it all. All of their dogs, all of their border collies are walking around the distillery. It is a farm and agriculture area. And you definitely feel that when you get there. So this first release from them is hot off the press that we're going to be trying, which is the Madeira cask. This is also 52%, so same as the Cana from Raasay. Madeira being closer to your Oloroso sherry, so coming from the Madeira island, so it is fortified wine, so coming from grapes, but a much more robust kind of intense climate on that island where they're making the wine. So it tends to have that fruit forward quality, but a lot of really rich baking spice as well. Madeira does really, really well with peated and unpeated whiskey. So this release here, let's get their tasting notes. 43, they're similar to Raasay where they're making peated and unpeated malt and marrying it together. They're extremely transparent as well. Anyone that's bought an Ardnamurchan bottle will see their QR codes. So you can actually scan this and get a full PDF of all of the barrels and casks that went into this specific release. Yeah, Jeff, don't get too attached to this though, because it's sold out. But that's why it's great we're getting to taste it. So this one here was... let's see here. So as a refill, oh, that's Kilchoman, sorry. 43% peated malt, 57% unpeated. So kind of middle of the road peated again. It's marriage, the youngest cask in the marriage of barrels was 6 years old. So it's probably 6 to 8 years old. First matured in ex-bourbon barrels for about 5 years, and then 2 to 3 years in ex-Madeira casks. Only 1,200 bottles were released to the US. That's why it came and went so fast. It's cocoa powder, stewed plum, sugared almonds. There's a lot of nice sweetness in this one. Fruit scones, toffee apple. They also talk about some of the spice too. Rosemary, black pepper, a long dry finish. Are you getting a lot of the smoke on this one, or did the Madeira kind of cover it up?
It's light. It's like a Highland Park smoke to me.
Okay, so lighter than Madeira, or sorry, lighter than the Raasay.
Yeah, very
For me,
light.
it is.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not tasting a lot of smoke on this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very light compared to number
Yeah.
3. It was more barbecue-y,
Mhm.
and this one's like really light.
And they do release full unpeated whiskey as well, which I actually really love their unpeated malt. I think they're a little bit more well known for their peated release and their core bottling, which is just AD, Ardnamurchan Distillery. Actually, everything now says AD on it, and then it's slash has the special release, but just AD is the core bottling, which is kind of a different mix up every time, but a mix of bourbon and sherry and sometimes red wine casks. And it's middle of the road peat. So I've found that their core release is great for someone who has enjoyed some peated whiskey. Maybe they're a Highland Park drinker or an Oban drinker, not ready for Isla, but looking for the peat is more prominent, but not super aggressive yet. But they do make heavily peated or release heavily peated whiskeys as well. Yeah.
Holly, Ardnamurchan is one that I don't even hesitate. Like every bottle I've had is good.
Mhm.
Are the prices climbing up, or is it just me? Like, are they starting to get noticed and the prices are going up?
For the single casks, like what we were talking about the other day, Chad, the single casks are pretty coveted. You know, cask strength Ardnamurchan is still really coveted. What's interesting is that they're very open and candid to selling to independent bottlers. And so we saw in Glass Shoe, which is kind of it's not like not that Glass Shoe isn't a great bottler, but you know, they're very open to selling because they are a bottler. They get it. And I haven't seen their releases in independent bottlers be too crazy yet, which is good. You know, a lot of times when you start to see those go through the roof, then the brand feels they can, you know, things start to climb. So it's good to watch both sides to see where things, you know, we're seeing that with Leitcheg, you know, even Bunnahabhain, you know, you start to see one climb and then you're worried that all of it's going to go up. I don't know. We'll see. I think the cask strength ones are very popular. So those are a little bit pricey, but you know, these aren't too crazy, you know, 69 to 89.99 for their limited releases. They're not natural cask strength, but they're still over 50, which is, you know, 50 or above, which is still good bang for your buck to get something from Ardnamurchan. So we'll see, but they typically are sub 100, which is nice, unless it's a single cask. I'll put the link to
even the ArdnaMerican, I think they call it, is really good and affordable.
Yeah. I was there's an ArdnaMerica bottling Sauternes out right now, which is a little confusing. So we're tasting, which I originally had, it came out after I placed the order for all of these bottles to put the kits together, but we will have it in. So if you like this Sauternes one, there's going to be a big sister release to this Sauternes one that we're headed into from Ardnamurchan. That's a little bit older and natural cask strength, which is one of the ArdnaMerica bottlings. And they actually last year, which the Madeira, this is the little sister, they did a Madeira, if you remember from last year, ArdnaMerica, which is great. I hope they don't get too out of control with the releases so that it's hard to follow, but so far we're still able to follow it. And they just came out with their 10-year-old today. So we were allocated 2 bottles. I haven't tasted it yet, but you'll see that on this kind of list. And we have one Adelphi bottle in the shop right now, so that's why that came up. But I'll put this in the chat here. Like I said, unfortunately, at least here, you might find it other places, but we're out of the Madeira and can't get more, but the Sauternes is still around for now. So let's pour this Sauternes. We'll see which one wins. Ardnamurchan Madeira or Sauternes. Sauternes is your sweet white wine, kind of like a muscatel, you know, these kind of thick, sweet, syrupy, yellow, orangish looking sweet wines, which tend to also do really well with, actually, if you have 4 glasses, just go for it, right? I should have said that before. Do Ardnamurchan and Kilchoman all in a row and just jump back and forth, because I think you'll see the 2 varieties of cask. White wine has always kind of been left out of the Scotch industry. And really in the last couple of years, we've seen more of these. I mean, you don't see a lot of like dry like you do in red wine. Although Glen Murray has a Chardonnay cask that I will refrain from saying my tasting notes, but usually dry white wine is not the best fit for Scotch, let's put it that way. But sweet white wine, when done right, can actually be really fun. And sometimes Sauternes can give you a little bit of that, like old peach, old, almost overripe, headed out the door peach. Ooh. So this is their heavily peated release, which on the finish, it's clearly there. So this is 100% of their peated malt. So there's no marriage of peated and unpeated or malt in this marriage. So they estimate it's about 35 parts per million. A lot of Islay is that 35 to 50. So this is definitely more peat. It was matured in, they can give you specific numbers, 29 ex-bourbon barrels, specifically for 3 years, and then re-racked, so a double maturation into Sauternes barriques, which is a kind of a fancy term for wine barrel, a little bit larger than a bourbon barrel, for a further 3.5 years. So actually more time in the Sauternes barrels, and globally, a little over 8,400 bottles were released of this. On the nose, lime, oh, that's fun, lime, lemon balm, buttery shortbread, hay, caramelized pineapple. The palate has honey, lemon meringue pie, nutmeg, earthy smoke. Yeah, for me, the smoke, it's almost like the Sauternes plays a dirty trick. Like it's this nice kind of soft honeyed sweetness, and then that peat smoke starts to explode middle back of the palate. You like this one? Got 1 thumbs up. Let's scroll through the photos. Okay,
Yeah, this is delicious.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, this is delicious.
Yeah, they do a great job. So that ArdnaMerica, hopefully we'll have in by the end of the month. Will be a little bit pricier, but will be the cask strength version of this, which will be fun to try when it comes in as well. And this one is, put it in the chat, but they're not crazy. This is 50% ABV. So, you know, definitely not natural cask strength, but I think it's a nice one to have. And I love seeing the Sauternes being used more often. And that leads us right actually into the Kilchoman Sauternes, which is also 50%. This is the true battle of the Sauternes cask. All right, so Kilchoman's old boy in town, which is crazy because they were the only ones. They were like them and Glenfarclas were independent for so long. And now obviously that's changed in the last 15 years. But Kilchoman is still deemed a farm distillery. And you'll have seen maybe some of their 100% Islay releases, which, and Bruichladdich does some of these too, but where they're growing 100% of the grain on Islay on their farms. So they're definitely, their attention to agriculture and sustaining that on the island is really important. And when you drive in, you'll actually see their farms. And Bruichladdich, you'll see their farm names as well. And And they do also a lot of their own floor malting. So just a small percentage, but again, really great. They were some of the pioneers to bring floor malting back into play. You know, think about when Kilchoman, which came back in 2005, which is a crazy time for whiskey, but it was in the 70s and 80s that everyone was getting rid of their malting floors, closing that part of production down. So 15 years later, you know, when the whiskey industry was kind of stagnant in the 90s, and now this new, you know, young distillery on Isla is coming back with growing their own grains. And now it seems we hear this all the time, but growing their own grains, malting their own grains, people would have told them that they're stupid. Why would you spend so much money and time doing all this? But they really were pioneers of what was to come, you know, starting in 2010 up until now in the Scotch industry, where education, tourism, people were going to visit. So they were really ahead of their time for what was to come in the Scotch whiskey industry. And they have their 3 core releases, which is the Mockyer Bay, which is the full bourbon, essentially full bourbon matured single malt, which I love. Really shows some of the salinity. The middle one is the Seneg, which is heavy bourbon with some sherry, and then their Lochgorm, which is their full sherry matured. And they have tons of different types of barrel maturations. We'll actually, with my next trip coming up in a month, we'll be on Isla, and you always want to have at least an hour and a half in the Kilchoman gift shop, because they have a bar and every type of cask finish you can imagine. Rum, Calvados, brandies from all over the world, tequila. They have it all in their 100% Isla releases and their core releases. So it's always a great place to have a couple extra hours. So this one here came out last year. It was part of their 50% edition range with the Sauternes finish, and I forget the other one that came out with it. But this, we have some serious Kilchoman fans at the shop, and this Sauternes has been the go-to for a lot of those Kilchoman fans. One of the things that I love about Kilchoman is it's Isla, it's heavily peated. They don't make unpeated, so heavily peated is their style, sticking true to their region. But it's a very bright, bouncy peat, typically. It has a lot of nice, bright qualities to it. I've actually tasted some of their older releases. Like I remember when they came out with their 16 year release, and I actually prefer the more youthful, briny, brighter whiskeys of Kilchoman, because they just have this nice, bright, clean, crisp taste to them, where a lot of oak influence for me on Kilchoman actually subdues that. But obviously a lot of people like the older stuff as well, but I love them at a younger age.
Do you know the ppm for this one?
This one here, let's see what they're telling us. So the Kilchoman Sauternes. Let's see. Ardnamurchan Sauternes, Madeira. This is 20. I don't know if I have printed the Kilchoman sheet. I'll have to get back to you on that one, Melissa. It's not.
Am I crazy that this one feels more peaty than the previous one, the Ardnamurchan?
Yeah, I mean, it feels heavier, more peat, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect it to. Traditional Kilchoman, I might, it's going to be in that 35 to 40. So it's definitely more traditional Isla. I have the.
To me, it seems significantly peatier than the Ardnamurchan. That's why I was asking, because I'm guessing that the ppms are going to come up similar, even though this one seems smokier and heavier than the other.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's definitely now. Pizza can get a little bit of a weird conversation because sometimes they're using, like Ardnamurchan's probably using Highland peat. where Kilchoman probably, but things have changed in the last 3 years,
That'd do it.
is using Isla peat. So, but sometimes they're using mixtures, right? Because you're at will to the malting facility. So, but in general, I would make that assumption. I would be 95% certain that we can say that. So that also might be playing a role. Also, unfortunately, I don't know, it's probably still sitting in the printer, which I could just run back.
Is
and
the
get.
finish time similar for both of them in the Sauternes?
Probably not. So
Yeah, okay.
that's a long maturation of 3.5 years for Ardnamurchan. I would imagine that this Kilchoman is maybe a year. So that's also playing a role as well. That's gonna drive me mad.
They're both amazing. It's just that the balance between the sweet and the peaty between the two of them is so different. I like them both, but they're completely on different ends of the spectrum for me.
Ooh. I mean, tasting notes are comparable though, which is interesting. Who cares about tasting notes? But
right,
creamy for the Kilchoman, creamy, buttery, ripe fruits, salty sea air, floral, tropical, candied fruits, sweetness on the finish, lingering smoke, and rich texture. Yeah, it's interesting. I get the Sauternes. I get the smoke up front with the Kilchoman and the sweetness and that honey on the back, kind of later. And the Ardnamurchan, it's reverse. So I get a lot of the sweetness up front, and then the peat smoke hits me mid.
Exactly. They're like cousins or something, but
Yeah.
I love to be able to compare them side by side because they seem to be completely like similar tasting notes and similar finish feel to them, but they're on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. Who did it better? Who did the sweet white wine better?
I really, really like the Ardnamurchan a lot.
Yeah, Ardnamurchan did
it better. Yeah, I mean, that's Isla. I mean, we've left let's be cute coastal Scotland, right? Like this is Kilchoman is Isla. So you have to like heavily peated.
Yeah,
right. It's more like it's
rounds
peat
up
with a
there.
little bit of sweet, and the other one is sweet with a little bit of peat.
What was that, Quaid?
I think the peat just takes over this one a little bit more. That's where it varies.
Yeah, it's a touch of sweetness.
I'll actually put a counter argument in that I actually like the Kilchoman better. I think though I'm a big Isla fan, and I will say for me the Ardnamurchan, I actually put the Madeira and the Sauternes next to each other, and I just thought the Madeira was much better. So, and then I put that Madeira next to the Kilchoman Madeira. Maybe I jumped ahead here, and the Kilchoman Madeira I think is actually really dry compared to the Ardnamurchan. So I don't know, but I like the peat forward stuff.
Interesting. All right, well, let's go to that Kilchoman Madeira. So this is a 9-year-old single cask, 750. No, that's the cask number. I was like 756 bottles. That's impossible. It's cask number 15756. Yeah, bottled last year, Madeira. This is full maturation in Madeira. So let's see here. So this is 9 full years in a refill Madeira hogshead. So it's not in your face Madeira. It already held Kilchoman, and now it's holding Kilchoman whiskey for the second time. But sometimes it can, well, not necessarily dried out, but it's interesting. I'm excited to try it again on the palate to see where that dryness is coming from. Their taste 292 bottles. This is 56.5% ABV. So still they're heavily peated, and they talk about toffee, caramel, more of an earthy peat smoke, candied orange, chocolate. So again, back to that sherry Madeira tasting note, that cocoa, chocolate, tobacco. but still some of that stewed fruit quality on the finish. So
Oh,
this,
Holly,
yeah,
I need to amend what I said. I said dry. What I meant to say was astringent. Like for me, it like makes my tongue feel like physically like really dry. Like I need to take a sip of water, which I find really interesting.
ooh, but it like just encases your tongue.
It does,
Um,
100%.
wow. So this is one of their, oh, I knew this was a cool release, but this is from 100% Isla Barley. So this is one of their releases that is all from their fields on Isla. And they're saying it's actually around 20 to 30 parts per million. Now, when we talk about ppm, most of these distilleries are measuring at the barley. But if anyone's familiar with a knock or knock do, there's some others that are starting to follow them. Parts per million of which is phenol, phenol parts per million. It can be measured at the grain. So right after the malting, right after you're burning the peat underneath the damp barley and drying it, which is going to be your highest parts per million. But think about that process that grain is going through over time and then sitting in a barrel and maturing, which parts per million of that phenol count from the smoke actually goes down. So parts per million and ppm is a little misleading because it's 35 parts per million at barley, but at bottling, it's probably more of 20 to 25. And that's one of the reasons that I love a knock and knock do, because they actually give you ppm at bottling. So now it's an extra step. They have to send it to a lab and measure it. But you'll see on knock do releases 19.8 ppm, or 13.2 ppm. So, but it is still, the benchmark is at barley. So, if we're comparing brands, you want to know what they're peating it to. But this is interesting because this Madeira is technically lower ppm, but that peat is very prominent, at least to my palate. I wouldn't call it aggressive, but it's pretty prominent. But I think the nose is really sweet. Sweeter than the Sauternes for. Oh, I like this
Holly,
one. Mm-hmm.
Holly, can I dip into more of your peat knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
So because you're mentioning how this has kind of a middle of the road to lower ppm, but it's very prominent peat like flavor.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's interesting is I've tried it was experimental or something, Octomore,
Mm-hmm.
that was like 70 plus, like it was crazy in the bottle, but the actual expression of the peat really, like you could tell it was there, but it wasn't. I would say it's actually like less than flavor wise than this.
Sick. Sometimes you read the parts per million on Octomores and you're like, I think I'll get ill if I drink that. Like it's but they are looking to achieve that level in the barley. So it's not that at bottling. That's just not physically possible at bottling. The process that grain goes through and distillation and then sitting in a barrel, it's all organic matter, right? There's things, it's evolving as it's going through the process and then sitting with time and air and oxygen. And so Octomore is talking about how intense can the malting process become? How can we push the limits and find new creative techniques, which will transfer to flavor, but they're not one-to-one. It's not 200 parts per million at malting, and that's what we get at bottling. So I'm sure they wouldn't like you asking them this, but I would ask, what is the ppm of this release at bottling? But that's not their marketing strategy, right?
I mean, is it really possible if they're sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, but part of it is also it's really hard to measure or to get a consistent or accurate ppm after it's been bottled, just because of the factors of how it breaks down and how long has the bottle been bottled or how long it's been aerated can change that. And I think it's interesting to see them also just to understand how ppm works for all the other distilleries is they take whatever they get and they mix it with unmalted barley, and then that's how they get the ppm they want from the malting facilities, which is really interesting. So Brigatti is like, hey, just give it to me straight, don't dilute or don't mix it with the unmalted to get it down, just give it to me exactly how it comes out of the oven.
Okay. I mean, so then with all that, is it really possible that when an Octomore bottle has like 75 parts per million on the bottle, I mean, really, you could be looking at parts per million in the glass that are less, sorry, yeah, in the glass, like in the physical whiskey that are, less than what we're drinking tonight?
No.
I
No,
don't know.
Octomore would still be higher.
Hmm.
But because of how aggressive the malting process is, but it's not what you're drinking is not what it says on the bottle.
Sure.
In
Okay.
literal math terms, if that makes sense. But that is
It does.
what they were able to achieve within the barley at the beginning of the process, which is still a feat in and of itself. It's and Lefroy talks, there's different ways to peat too. It's not one way. They talk about cold smoke and, temperatures how long is the barley sitting over the peat smoke. So everyone has their own little ways of achieving this flavor profile that they claim to want. So yeah, peat is an interesting math equation. Let's put it that way.
Salinity question, Holly. Are you
Thanks,
getting
guys.
a lot of salinity and saltiness on this, or is that the crackers I've been using for palate cleanse?
I find a lot of nice briny salinity, whatever, those two I kind of use. They can be the same thing in a sense. I'm not going to claim that they are an island distillery. They mature almost all of their whiskey on Islay, which is different from other island distilleries. Is there a coastal influence? Sure. During production and maturation. That's also like peat, even harder to prove and a trickier discussion, but definitely in Kilchoman, just in how they make their whiskey, I think it's got a very nice briny coastal salinity. You can say that about Madeira sometimes too. There's some salinity even within some of the wines that people are using. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah. But actually, isn't it one of those interesting facts is that salinity itself is just not physically possible to get, but it's your brain associating the flavors that make you taste something salty because of all the other combinations.
How
right?
your
Because
palate
with
reacts.
distillation,
Mhm.
yeah, how your palate is reacting because you can't distill anything with some salinity. But yes, as it interacts with the air and the cask for the ones that are, and just the flavors you get, it's just an interesting thing with the mind and how it plays with your flavor senses.
It's not actually salt, but it's what our brain perceives as salt, right? It's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna put these. So do we like the Madeira? Yeah. I like the Madeira a lot. That's one of the ones I hadn't tasted yet. I'm trying to get into this Kilchoman. Let's see. Okay.
Is this
I
one
would
available?
recommend going to Kilchoman.
Here's Kilchoman. And they've got a new 100% Isla out. They actually have two different ones. They also had a Muscatel 5-year-old Kilchoman that came out with this 9-year-old that was awesome. So loving that they're doing more single casks as well. It's been fun to follow this brand for the last 10 years from their first releases. All right, so let me stop sharing this because I can't really see any of you. So let me stop sharing.
Yeah, they're about to do their 20-year, right? They just released the first 20-year-old, wasn't it, last year?
She's too old for Kilchoman, personal opinion. And how much is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's I think young, briny, bright Kilchoman that's their sweet spot, right? The Ardbeg
Yeah.
maybe is your next competitor in that briny, bright peat smoke world, but I think they do it better. So
yeah, I agree. When we were there, they released their 16-year-old, which was their oldest, and their younger stuff was better, I thought.
Yeah.
Just a little more live.
Did anybody get to try the Kilchoman? What was it, 2-year-old? That was it wasn't officially a whiskey, but it was
right.
One of those just like really just showed how good their distillate was, like on its own.
Clean.
It's
yeah.
Just a beautiful, beautiful.
Holly, are
now
they
they're
still
the old guard. you know, now you've got Ardnamurchan and Port Nc'Nean coming online and Logan Bay. There's a lot going on island now. So
yeah, Port Ellen, right?
They're middle aged.
Did Kilchoman sell, or are they still a family owned distillery?
Still independent. Yeah, it's still the what's the name? Wells. Still run by the sons. There's 3 sons. Yeah,
it definitely seemed like a down home, all the family worked there type place, which was cool.
Yeah, they're still, and you see them around too when you go. You know, you'll see the sons, and you'll see they're not in production anymore, but you'll still see them all around, and you'll see them in the U.S. too, which is cool. You'll still see them here. So, what were the favorites? I know we're 8:30, so go, Eric. What was your favorite?
The Kilchoman Sauternes was my favorite.
Nice. Okay.
I really love that.
All right, Leland, what was yours? Making sure to pick the right vial.
Yeah, sorry, I've been on mute. I've been with my daughters and babysitting a friend's daughter all night, so it's been a wild household. The Ardnamurchan, I know I mispronounced that, but the what's the wrong bottle? The white.
Oh, Sauternes or Madeira?
That's it. The Sauternes. That was great. Yep.
Nice. Dave Tobias.
I think I like the Kilchoman Madeira the best, although this Sauternes was very good too.
Okay, nice. So Kilchoman. All right, Chad.
Sophie's choice between Ardnamurchan Madeira and the Calvados. Nc'Nean.
Oh, good, we got a Nc'Nean in there. We forgot about her, didn't we? 254.
They're
number 1.
They're too loud.
Stout cask, nice. All right, 1 for Nc'Nean. We'll take it. All right, Innocent Gun. Are we coming off mute, or should I move on, Nate?
Nc'Nean Calvados. Nc'Nean Calvados.
Nice.
That's where we're going with.
For everyone. Okay. Nice. All right, Melissa.
I'm between the Cana and the Ardnamurchan Sauternes.
Nice. I think I know Jim's. The Madeira, Kilchoman.
Yeah, but also the Calvados, really nice.
Okay.
Those are the 2. Yeah.
Good. Quaid?
I'm in agreement with Chad. I like the Ardnamurchan Madeira followed by the Calvados Big Apple. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, Jeff.
Not to be unique, but same as Quaid.
All right, everyone else, there's 4 people left. You're not on camera. Just if you want me to call on you, or if you want to stay hidden, that's fine. But you can say it. Come off mute if you want to say it.
Sorry, but this is Alan. I'm on the road traveling, so I recorded this so I can taste later.
Oh, okay. Alan, I think that you will like the Nc'Nean Calvados.
I just finished a bottle of the Raasay, so I'm going to be doing a backup of that.
All right.
The Calvados is my next, definitely.
Okay.
And the Nc'Neans, I mean.
Nice. Tony and Tom, if you want to share your favorite, you can. Raphael, I'd love to hear yours too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll let you go, man.
I would go probably Ardnamurchan Madeira or the Cana. I didn't try the Nc'Neans because I was eating dinner during that time, so I'm gonna circle back to it.
Very honest. Thank you.
The 2 ArdnaMerican for me. So,
Okay. Nice.
Madeira and the Sauternes. So.
And Raphael?
So this is interesting because the Big Apple, I love Nc'Nean, what they did there with the Calvados, but I'm typically not a huge fan of ArdnAmerican. Just that profile throws me off a little bit. But I am really liking that first ArdnAmerican. Something about that balance there was just really nice.
Did you like it more once I said it was sold out? I feel like that.
No, that usually doesn't bother me because I feel like even though it's sold out here in the US, I'm sure they're still in Europe.
Yeah, I'm sure
you can probably find
it around.
But if I really wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's popular.
So if I wanted it, I could find it, but I thought that was really well balanced, a really good cask management for that one. Didn't overpower the distillate and came out really nice. So I think between those two, Kilchoman, I just love Kilchoman. We had a blast when we went there, and it was such a beautiful place too. And I think those were great. So those would be really good, close 3rd and 4th for me.
Great. All right. Well, I think Peated releases wins for this coastal seminar. That's what I'm hearing. But a little bit of Nc'Nean Calvados. So we'll take that too. Well, would love feedback too. If you like these types of classes and you want more of these kind of, not shop releases necessarily, but if you want more of these styles of classes, kind of regional, I'd love to do more of them, so I can do some more takeovers of the Saratoga Whiskey Club if we want to do it. We'll let Charles come when he's back in town, but
yes, please.
Break too.
Yeah,
yes, please.
The regions definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Holly. This is great.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks
great
everyone for joining and showing interest. And I know some of you were interested in bottles, so Quaid, it might have sold. I have to see what orders were, but if you could just shoot me an email with what you want, and then I'll get it all organized. The only one I have to check on the Kilchoman Madeira, how many we have, but everything I can get except for the Ardnamurchan Madeira. So just shoot me an email and I'll get it all situated. All right, great. So I'll stop.